All right, come sit close, sweetheart. Let me tell you something people don't always say out loud anymore. It's the kind of story that sounds warm at first, like fresh pie on a windowsill. But if you listen carefully, you'll hear the warning baked right in. I knew a woman once. Let's call her Margaret, lived out in Ohio in a little white house with blue shutters she and her first husband painted together back in the early 80s. Oh, she loved that house. Every corner had a memory. Birthday candles, muddy shoes, laughter echoing down the hallway. Her husband, Daniel, passed on after 40 years together. It near broke her, but Margaret, she was stronger than she looked. Took her time, grieved proper, then slowly stitched her life back together. She had his pension, her own savings, and a quiet kind of peace. Not lonely, no, not exactly, just settled. She'd sit on her porch in the evenings, watching the sun dip low, sipping her tea. Said she finally learned how to enjoy her own company, and that, my dear, is no small thing. Now, life has a funny way of turning pages when you think the story's done. One spring, at a community fundraiser, church basement, folding chairs, the smell of coffee and pound cake, she met a man named Walter. Oh, he had a smile that could light up a room. Bit older like her, a widower too, and he could talk. Goodness, he could talk. Made her laugh in a way she hadn't in years. They started slow, walks in the park, Sunday lunches, phone calls that stretched late into the night. And Margaret, well, she felt something bloom again, something she thought she'd buried with Daniel. Now listen close. Walter wasn't a bad man, not at all. He was kind, attentive, and he adored her. And after a while, folks started asking, "So when's the wedding?" You know how people are. They see two older folks in love and think the only proper ending is a ring and a ceremony. Margaret hesitated, just a little, but love has a way of whispering louder than caution, and tradition? Oh, that voice can be mighty strong. So at 73, in a soft lavender dress, she stood in front of family and friends and said, "I do" again. There was music, laughter, even a little dancing. She thought to herself, maybe life really does give second chances. Now here's the part people don't clap for. A few months later, she got a letter, plain envelope, government seal, the kind you open without thinking twice. But that letter, it changed everything. Turns out the benefits she'd been receiving from Daniel's pension, steady, reliable, the kind that let her sleep easy at night, those didn't follow her into her new marriage. No one had told her, not at the courthouse, not at the church, not even the well-meaning friends who toasted her happiness. Just like that, gone. Margaret sat at her kitchen table, letter in hand, reading it over and over like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something kinder. But they didn't. And life, as it tends to do, kept moving forward whether she was ready or not. Because not long after that, Walter's health began to slip. Small things at first, forgotten names, missed turns while driving, then bigger things, doctor's visits, tests, words that sound heavy even when whispered. And suddenly, love wasn't just laughter and hand-holding anymore. It became appointments, bills, decisions that felt too big for one person to carry. Margaret found herself standing in places she'd never imagined: offices, forms, conversations about costs and responsibilities. And each time there was that same quiet realization settling deeper into her bones. That one signature, written on a hopeful day, had tied her life to more than just love. It tied her to everything that came after. Now, I won't finish this story tonight, dear. Some lessons need a little space to breathe before the rest is told. But remember this much: love is a beautiful thing, one of the finest we're given. But sometimes the world wraps it in paper you don't think to read until it's already been signed. Now tell me something, sweetheart. I've done enough talking for one evening. Have you ever seen something like this happen? Maybe not the same way, but close enough to make you pause. Have you or someone you know ever made a decision out of love and only later realized there were consequences no one warned you about? Maybe it was marriage. Maybe it was money. Maybe it was trusting the wrong system or the right person at the wrong time. I'm curious, when you think about your own life, have you ever had to learn something important the hard way? Do you feel like people are properly warned about financial risks in relationships, especially later in life? Or do you think love still gets treated like it's separate from all those practical realities? And if you're comfortable sharing, what would you tell someone standing where Margaret once stood, on the edge of a decision that feels right in the heart, but uncertain everywhere else? Go on now. I'm listening. All right, come a little closer. Let me finish what I started. Margaret didn't give up. Oh no, she wasn't raised that way. She sat at that same kitchen table, the one where she once read that letter, and this time she didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because she understood now, clear as day. She started asking questions, calling offices, meeting people who spoke in long words and fine print. It was exhausting, confusing, sometimes downright unfair, but little by little she learned how the world really worked, the part no one explains when you're standing in a pretty dress saying, "I do." Walter's condition worsened, just like the doctors had warned, and Margaret, she kept her promise. She stood by him through the hard days, the quiet days, the days he didn't quite remember her name, but still held her hand like it mattered. Love didn't disappear. It changed shape. It became patience. It became sacrifice. It became strength. But it also came with a cost she never imagined. There were nights she lay awake thinking about that house, the one with the blue shutters, about Daniel, about the life she had built so carefully, brick by brick. And she realized something that settled deep in her bones. She hadn't been wrong to love again, but she had walked into something she didn't fully understand, and that's what she wished someone had told her. When Walter passed, the house was still hers by the grease of quick thinking and a little help along the way, but her savings were thinner, her safety net not quite what it used to be. So she did what strong women do. She adjusted. She planted new flowers in the yard, sat on her porch again, watched the sun go down just like before, only now with wiser eyes. And sometimes, when the light hit just right, she'd smile a little and whisper to herself, "Love is a gift, but understanding is protection." Now you listen to me, dear. If you ever find yourself standing where Margaret once stood, with a full heart and a hopeful future, don't be afraid to love. Just make sure you know what you're signing your name to, because the world doesn't always explain the rules, but it will always enforce them. Thank you for sitting with me and hearing this story all the way through. If it meant something to you, if it made you think or reminded you of someone, go ahead and subscribe, like, and share it with others who might need to hear it too. You never know whose life a story like this might quietly change.